Hello, and thanks for joining me. I hope everyone's had a pleasant Christmas. I don't want to make this one too long. I just want to get straight to the point, and I want to discuss fox hunting. Um, it's sort of becoming a prominent issue again because there is speculation that the Prime Minister will be pressured by certain backbench MPs to hold a free vote on this. In the grand scheme of things, it is certainly far down the list in terms of priorities with everything that's going on with Brexit, with the situation regarding North Korea, with Russian meddling claims, in terms of being a priority, high homelessness in this country, it really wouldn't seem to be at the top of the list. But I think it's one of those things that even though it doesn't actually directly impact most people's lives, it's the sort of thing that people do tend to get quite strong views on. And I think that's because as a nation, as a society, we do tend to reflect on what is ethical and what isn't. And so if there is something that is being done in the country that people consider to be unethical, it does become a topical subject. It becomes something that people get quite strong views over. Um, this tradition has a long history in this country. I don't mind calling it a tradition. That does not mean I'm endorsing it. And from the outset, I want to be clear that I am against it. I think it's cruel and unnecessary blood sport. It is a tradition, but to me, the point I would make is that tradition doesn't mean that in itself is not an excuse for something to continue. You could call a lot of things a tradition. There was a controversy in China about the Yulin Dog Festival. Now that's actually not a very old festival. It's only been going about 10 years. There's widespread disgust, quite honestly, around the world at that so-called festival. And within China as well, there's a growing number of Chinese people keeping dogs as pets. They're also uncomfortable about it. So, the point I would make is just because something has tradition in the name doesn't mean that it should be endorsed. Certainly, fox hunting does have a long history in this country. If people think of British stereotypes, it might well be one of those things that come to mind. This is totally unrelated, but the film 1408, John Cusack's character says, it's just an ordinary room. There's pictures of stuffy British lords on a fox hunt, something to that effect. Yeah, but anyway, the pictures show British lords in the red garb on a fox hunt. And that is pretty much the image. I don't know how long the history is, certainly a few hundred years anyway. But 2004, um, the Hunting Act was put forward, and 2005 it became law. That act was widely supported by the public. Of course, there was a debate, both sides were argued out, but it was widely supported by the public. It is true that there was a discrepancy between urban areas and rural areas, and this is something I want to comment a bit on. I feel that in the early 2000s in particular, there was a lot of issues that really impacted rural areas that arguably you could say it was New Labour's equivalent of what the miners' strike was to the Tories, insofar as you had communities that felt they were being ignored by New Labour, where New Labour done well in cities, they didn't do so well in rural areas, although that's been the way for a long time. The Tories have always done well in rural areas. So have the Liberal Democrats, Labour not so much. And that's, it's a sweeping statement, but that's generally the picture. So in the early 2000s, there was the foot and mouth outbreak, which was devastating to the rural economy. Um, and there were a lot of things, I believe, that were impacting the countryside. But I think one of the biggest mistakes that the Countryside Alliance made when they had those huge rallies in London, 2002, 2004, was to make the fox hunting issue one of the priorities. I think they would have got a lot more wider support if they had really capitalised on other issues that were impacting rural communities. But what they focused on is let us keep fox hunting. So to the rest of the country, they just look like, rightly or wrongly, they look like cruel toffs. And I don't believe they are all toffs, but there is definitely, when we think of fox hunting, we think of Downton Abbey, we think of there is a stereotype with it, and I don't think anyone can really deny that. But I do believe that that hunting ban was one of the most progressive things the Blair government done. I think it was a good thing, and it was something that had to happen because this is not supported by the majority of the public, and it is totally unnecessary. Um, One of the things that the hunt lobby is doing these days is using that as an excuse, using alibis like, oh, but foxes are pests, we need to do it for that. Give me a break. Give me a break. They have only been using this thing about pest control as an excuse since the ban came in, right? This is becoming more prominent now because the Prime Minister is in favour of it. Like I say, she will probably be pressured by backbench pro hunt Tories to have a free vote on this. Um, and I think that it's becoming prominent because apparently on Boxing Day there was a lot of hunts scattered around the country, and according to I think it was the Daily Mail, they went out defiantly. Now, to me, defiantly means they are breaking the law. This is an illegal act. Fox hunting is illegal in this country. So, as far as I'm concerned, local police authorities need to be enforcing the law. And if that means arresting these people, so be it. They might well get violent. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them. They've been violent with anti hunt protesters. Having said that, anti hunt protesters sometimes use methods I wouldn't agree with. There was one guy recently, and it was a bit idiotic. He grabbed the stirrup of the horse that the hunt woman was on. That was very stupid. He could have got seriously injured. She could have got seriously injured. The horse could have got injured. It was very stupid. So I certainly don't agree with the tactics of hardline anti-hunt zealots, but I do think that there is a thuggish and rather nasty side to the hunt lobby, and it's something they just don't care about. It's something that there's deep arrogance there that they just don't seem to grasp that the rest of the country is against it. Consistent polls show somewhere in the region, and it will fluctuate, but somewhere in the region of 80% of the public opposes this. So there really is not a case of it's not a case of this was something that was done against public desires. Most people supported it. It was a popular policy because people recognise it was a cruel and outdated blood sport that has absolutely no necessity whatsoever. If this was really about protecting livestock, as they often claim, then there's nothing stopping farmers from shooting foxes or putting down deterrents. As I understand it, you can get certain smells that are repellent to foxes, put it around the chicken coop. I am sure there are a lot of ways to protect livestock without going out and hunting parties. But it's just they must think that the rest of the country is stupid by using those excuses. And like I say, it was only used, they never used that when they were doing the hunting when it was legal. So that shows it was never the issue. Foxes aren't an endangered species, but I really do think that if you're getting pleasure from seeing a defenseless animal torn to shreds for no other reason than the sport of it, there's something wrong with you. You may treat people well enough, but you must have some sort of I don't know. You must have some sort of empathy deficit or something wrong with you if you see an animal being torn to shreds and you can't have an ounce of compassion. Um, I am not an animal rights zealot. I believe there are occasions when it's justified to kill animals. There are parts of the world where people have to hunt for food. I get that. But that simply isn't the case with the hunt lobby and the issue of fox hunting. So if there is a vote on this, I hope the majority of parliamentarians have the good sense to maintain the ban. I also believe that it needs to be enforced. And if May tries to push this, not only is she, personally, I think if she tries to push it, she'll be trying to probably distract hardline backbench Tories probably from Brexit. And just don't think it's necessary in the grand scheme of things. A priority is not bringing back a cruel blood sport that is not needed, not wanted by the majority of people, and really not necessary. Let them dress up, okay? Let them have other rural traditions. But this is illegal, and it's illegal for a reason. There's no need for it. As for protecting livestock, nothing stopping farmers doing that, but that isn't the issue. And it's disingenuous to claim that it is. And these people are just so arrogant that they, to say, when I read Hunt's go ahead defiantly, I'm reading criminals breaking the law, because fundamentally that's what it is. That is what it is. It's an illegal activity, and they're doing it. So the law should be enforced, and these people, at least the Hunt leaders, should be arrested. The Hunt organizers. It's the law has to be enforced, otherwise it's pointless having it there. Um, I'll make one last point. There was a segment I found it online last year where a young guy who was against fox hunting and a hunter had dialogue. It was some sort of BBC segment. Now they were civil to each other, probably because the cameras were there. They didn't end up agreeing at all, but the young guy made the point, if it's really about protecting chickens, which was the excuse the guy used, then use some sort of repellent. Um, the hunter said, "Oh, I'll think about it," but he just had no arguments, and that is the point. You can say anything's a tradition. Um, I really take a dim view of tradition in itself being used as an excuse, and I do believe that heritage is important. I do believe that maintaining a sense of cultural identity is important, but there are some things that should be consigned to history. This is one of them. The majority of the public are against it. It's unnecessary. It's cruel. It's just plain wrong. And if you, like I say, if you find it thrilling to watch a defenseless animal torn to shreds, I mean, it's extremely cowardly when you think about it. It's one fox versus what, a dozen, 20 hunters and their dogs. Yeah, that's fair. That's balanced. That's really sport, isn't it? And I think that's how most people see it. So leave it there. Thanks for watching. Final point, right? On the issue of sport, some of you who follow this channel know I watch boxing. Well, that's the point, isn't it? Two human boxers, it's 50-50. They're both choosing to do it. The fox has no choice. So let's stop calling this cruel activity a sport. It's not a sport. It's just a cruel activity that needs to be consigned to history. And I really hope May and these backbench Tories are defeated if they try to push this.